Thanks for joining us for this podcast from Atlee Church. Atlee is a safe place for those who've given up on church or never went. Our mission is to reach seekers and equip believers to love God, love themselves, love others, and serve the world. We'd love to have you connect with us at one of our physical campuses or online for a weekend service. You can find out more about our locations and service times on our website. We hope that you will be encouraged and challenged to take the next step in your personal faith journey through the message you're about to hear.
Well, hello, everyone. Everybody doing all right today? All right, do me a favor at all of our campuses, turn to somebody next to you and say, man, it is good to see you in church today. Can you do that for me real quick? Even if you don't know them, make it awkward. If you're watching online, glad that you're here with us today. And today what we're doing is we're continuing part 2 of a series we started last week on relationships called Love and Respect. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Trey Kreitzer. I am our Scottsville's campus pastor and one of the teaching pastors here. And I'm so glad that you're a part of today's service. Now, if you missed last week, let me just tell you, go online to our site, our app, our podcast, watch that because it really did set a foundation for where we're going a little bit today in our series about how to make relationships better, especially marriage relationships. We looked at a passage last week in the book of Ephesians. It was written by a guy named Paul, an earlier follower of Christ and writer of much of the New Testament. And he's encouraging people to live their lives in a different way. And here's what he writes. Ephesians 5:33 says, each one of you must love. Everybody say love. Love his wife as he loves himself. And the wife must respect. Everybody say respect. Respect her husband. And so we looked at this passage last week and kind of broke it down and realized there were some things that maybe we needed to do differently. But the biggest thing we identified was that men and women need different things when it comes to relationships. We looked at most men in relationships, especially in conflict, need to know that they're respected, that there's respect for them. And women, they need love. They need to know that you care and value them and appreciate them by loving them. And so we said there's 2 different ways in which we can approach a relationship and give the other person what they need. But we talked about a lot of times we get stuck in this thing called the crazy cycle. And this is what the crazy cycle looks like. And this is maybe where you're at in your relationship today, that when you don't feel love, especially wives in here, if you don't feel loved, you react. And you get upset because you're needing something that you're not getting from your spouse. And so you get frustrated, upset. And then what happens is the man doesn't feel respected at this point. So he's not choosing to show love. And he reacts and gets upset and frustrated because he feels like he isn't valued or appreciated in the relationship. And so this cycle goes on and on and on and on until, like we talked about last week, somebody is willing to step up and break the cycle and choose to give love and respect unconditionally, which is a very hard thing to do because a lot of us in relationships, we're always looking at what we're getting instead of what we're giving. And we talked about last week the idea of what if we were just to give love and respect without anything in return? What would it do for our relationships? And so that's kind of where we started last week with this series. And if you want more information on this book, because there's only so much that we can cover during a Sunday morning series like this, here's the book. It's called Love and Respect. It's a great book for couples if you want to study it or just read through it. And they also have a devotional. My wife and I, we're actually going through the devotional now together as a couple, and it's great stuff. So highly recommend both of those. If you get a chance, pick those up on Amazon. You can get them on Kindle for really cheap if you have an electronic device. But today, as we dive into this, let me ask this question. How many of you have ever tried to help somebody or love somebody but it really didn't go according to plan. Anybody ever have a moment like that where you really were trying, you had good intentions, but it didn't really go over so well? I had this situation come up for me a little while back. My wife was out for the day, and I had gotten home from work, and she was still at work, and I decided I was going to do something to help her around the house. And the biggest thing that she loves help with is just chores. And if I could take one thing off her list, it would be doing the laundry. She hates doing laundry. I hate doing laundry, but she puts up with it, and I kind of just tolerate it, but really hope and pray that she does it because I'm just horrible at it. I don't know much about it, and every time I try, it seems like it just doesn't work out. But it's like, you know what, today I'm going to do the laundry. I'm going to step up. I'm going to be the man. I'm going to do the laundry in the house. So I went in there, and there was all these clothes, and I'm like, where did these come from? Like, are these ours? Like, I didn't know we could accumulate so many clothes in a week. So I was like, okay, first step, take clothes, put them in washer. I can do that. So put it in the washer, put the stuff in there, turn it on, cycle. I think it's running. We're good. It says it take about an hour. So I, leave it, let it do its thing, come back, and clothes smell good and seems to be going well at this point. And I was like, okay, I'll just take them out and I'll put them in the dryer. So I take them out and I'm looking at the dryer and there's like 100 settings on this thing, right? So I'm like, in order for something to be dry, you must have to put it on hot. So I put it on extra hot, so it'd be extra warm, right? That's the way to dry things. So put that in there, put the little thing in there, put all our clothes in there. What I didn't know was all my wife's really nice clothes were in this laundry bin. And she'd gotten into this thing called LuLaRoe, which is like leggings and stuff, real stretchy material stuff. And so I'm being a great husband, right? I'm washing it for her. So I put it all in there, extra hot. Let it do its thing. And I'm like, we'll just let these bad boys cook and I'll come back and they'll be good to go. So I come back in and I go to open up the dryer and the dryer looks a little smaller. And I was like, I thought there were more clothes than this in there. So I pick up the LuLaRoe clothes and I was like, looks a little smaller than last time I saw you. And I'm trying to stretch it out and pull it. And I'm like, man, my wife's clothes just went to children's size, right? Like, this is not good. So I'm trying everything I can. So I just fold it up and hopefully she won't notice, right? Which is, I don't know why I thought that, but I put them in her closet and I'm waiting for her to come home. And she comes home and is like, man, thank you for doing laundry. I love you. And I'm like, I love you too. Just wait till you see those clothes. So the next day, she wakes up and she goes to put on her clothes, and I hear this noise from the closet, Trey, what did you do? And I'm like, you remember, you love me. You told me. And all her LuLaRoe turned into Lula Shrunk, right? It was not good. And I have not really allowed to do laundry since then. But I was trying to show her love. I just didn't show her love in the correct way. And I think sometimes in our relationships, we're like that, aren't we? Like, we try our best. We think we're doing the right thing, but we end up giving somebody something that they're really not wanting. And it happens in our relationships when we're constantly trying to love or respect each other. We have to learn how the other person needs us, how the other person receives and needs love and receives and needs respect. And so today, we're going to talk about how to do that practically in our relationships. And I just want to give you a few quick things that I think are going to help you as you learn to love and respect each other in a different way. And so last week, we talked about breaking the bad cycle that we are in, the crazy cycle. This week, let's look at a different cycle that we can get involved in. The first thing we have to be willing to do, hopefully you got your program when you came in and look something like this. Go ahead and pull that out. The first thing we're going to talk about is the idea of changing the cycle. We have to change the cycle. We have to get out of the crazy cycle and start a new cycle. And this cycle is called the energizing cycle. It's one of the things that the book mentions, and I think it's a great term for us to rewrite the story of our relationships a little bit. And here's what this cycle looks like. It's the idea that husbands, when we choose to show love unconditionally, then we give our spouse the love that they need, it motivates them. It makes them feel better about themselves. It makes them feel better about the relationship. And once that person's motivated, then, guys, we get the respect that we're looking for and wanting because the wife is willing to show respect. And once they get respect, it motivates the husband to once again then show love. And the cycle looks differently and it acts differently because of the fact that we're willing to give each other what we actually need unconditionally without receiving, but we're choosing to give. But the great thing is once we give, it's amazing what we can get in return. So the idea that our love and our respect motivates each other to a better cycle and a better relationship in order to be a better couple. Now, I said this last week. This series is very much so focused on marriage relationships, but this can go for any relationship because whether we like it or not, we're in relationships with each other every single day with people around us. People at work, people at home, our families, our communities, people are around us all the time. So it's important to learn how to be in relationships better, even if you're not married in here today. But especially if you're married, it's very important to learn how to do these things so that we can be the people and the couples that God has created and called us to be. And so how do we practice this energizing cycle? The next thing on your program we're going to look at together today, number 2, is we're going to learn how to practice being a couple. Practice being a couple. And we're going to look at an acronym for couple that's going to help us put some different things into practice as we walk through this together today. Because I believe there's a few things, if we could learn to do better, it would change the way in which our relationships are functioning. And that's what we want, right? We just listen to the songs that we sung. We want to compromise. We want to learn how to meet in the middle. And we want to learn how to be better by giving of ourselves. And so this will hopefully help us do that a little bit more easier. Number 1, the first thing in this couple acronym we have to learn to do better at is our closeness. Number 1, the thing that we need and want and desire in a relationship is closeness. And closeness we looked at last week in Ephesians 5. Paul instructs a man and woman to leave their father and mother and be united as one. The idea that we leave and then we cleave to our spouse. And the idea of cleaving means to hold, cling, or hold close to. Being close means that we're connected with one another in the way in which we spend our time. Now, most of us, we would say we desire closeness, but we probably don't have closeness in our lives or relationships right now. Because of the fact, most of us, when we come home from work, we don't want people around us, right? We want to be alone. We want to be on our phones. We want to be watching TV. We want to be distracted instead of being around each other and feeling close to each other. We think that's what we need, but it's not really what we need. Time to connect is important for us as a couple. I remember for me, this was really hard because I know my wife wanted to feel close to me. And right when I got home, she was ready to tell me all about her day. And she would just unload all of these words that I was just not ready to handle coming home from work. And so one thing we established in our marriage, which I think was just awesome, was a 30-minute buffer time. This is a 30-minute between when I come home from work or she comes home from work before we kind of jump into our family time together. It gives us time to get changed, hang out, answer any last-minute texts or phone calls so that we can give each other the time and attention that we're needing. A 30-minute buffer will look something like just getting 30 minutes just to decompress and transition from one environment to the next so that we can give the closeness that our spouse needs. The 30-minute rule is awesome. So how do we do this? How do we be close to one another again? It can be simple things like this. Choose to hold hands. Sometimes we as couples forget how cool that can be, is to hold each other's hands. Go for a walk together. After work or after a long day, a walk just to kind of have time together to be close is great. Make priority to spend time with one another. Put down the cell phones and the TV long enough to spend time together. And do something that I love. It's called suggest the unexpected. It's a way to feel close with one another. I'm a very spontaneous person. I love to get out and go and do stuff. My wife, she's very routine. She likes things to be done in an order and for us to kind of keep the routine. But the other night, she was like, Trey, let's go out tonight. Let's go out to dinner. And I was like, really? I thought you were making dinner. She's like, yeah, we can eat that tomorrow. Let's go out anywhere you want. I was like, really? Anywhere I want? So we took our night and guess where we went? We went to Arby's and got a beef and cheddar. And it was awesome. And I was like, man, this is a great date, right? I want 2 beef and cheddars because it's so great. Like, it was awesome. My wife is never spontaneous like that, but she knows that's something that I need. And so she chose to, that's one way we got to feel close, was going on a date with our son to Arby's. But we had the car ride there and back where we weren't on our phones and we were just spending time talking and catching up with one another. That closeness can be done in different ways, but it's important to have that time together. Which leads us to the next thing that we need to do when we have these times of closeness. Number 2, the idea that we have openness with one another, that there's an open dialogue between each other. And I find that these times can be really hard because a lot of times we just give each other surface level answers. So here's a question I want you to ask your spouse, significant other, friends, family member, somebody you want to be close to or be more open with. Ask this question this week. How are you doing really? How are you doing really? Because a lot of times we just go throughout life and we go, how you doing? Good. How you doing? Bad, sad, whatever. And we never get to actually how that person's doing or what that person's gone through. But if you ask somebody, how are you doing really? That kind of gets more to the heart of the issue. And sometimes it may take you a while to process that. I remember when my wife first started asking me that question, I was like, you know what? I have no idea what I'm feeling. But when I figure it out, I'll let you know. And I'd come back a day later and I'm like, hey, remember that question you asked me how I'm really doing? Yeah, I figured it out. Let me tell you. And it led to us being a lot more open with each other. How are you doing really? And men, we have a harder time with this because women, you are so great at sharing your feelings and emotions and all these things. And guys, we're so easy just to sit there and listen instead of responding and sharing how we feel as well. Getting to those emotions can be harder for us, but we have to open up. Or if not, we're going to turn into volcanoes and we erupt because we have all these things and emotions inside that we haven't shared before. So take time to be open with one another. How do you do this? Have set times to talk with one another. Maybe it's at night, in the morning, throughout the day, but have a set time that you spend time talking to each other. Another thing is to pray together. This is a big issue that I think a lot of couples struggle with. We don't spend time praying together. We may have our own prayer lives separately and stuff, but how often do you pray with your spouse? Or how often have you went to your significant other and just said, hey, how can I pray for you today? It's a cool question to ask. Another thing, we can give our full attention and we can ask good questions. These help us become more open with each other. And as we become more open with each other, it leads us to this, the idea that we feel understood by each other, that we have a sense of understanding, that we can actually listen to each other and give each other the time and attention that we need. And this is a thing that I had to learn with my wife, is she wanted me just to hear her out. She just wanted me to be there to listen. Guys, here's what we do when we hear our wife talk about a problem. We ultimately go to fix-it mode, where we want to change and fix the situation and beat that guy up who said that thing to her. And that's not really what she wants. She really wants you just to listen. And so I had to ask, when my wife would start sharing things about what happened to her day, I'd say, okay, hold on. Do you want me just to listen to you, or do you want me to fix this? And most of the time she'll say, I just want you to listen and help me get my guard down. And okay, I'm just going to listen. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to fix it. I'm just going to listen. But then there are times where she's like, Trey, at the end of this conversation, I want you to fix it. I'm like, oh yeah, I got the list. And I'm like, I'm going to tell you what to do, girl. We're going to change the world. It's going to be awesome. But it enables me to know what she's needing in those moments. Does she want me to fix it, or does she just want me to listen? Great questions for us guys to go through. Here's another thing that we can do during these times, is we can clarify the content that we hear. When our spouse is telling us something, repeat back to them what they said. It lets them know that you heard them, and it lets you guys know that you're all on the same page. So here's some things you can do. Don't try to fix everything. Try to talk it out and to listen. And then choose to repeat back so that person knows that they were heard and understood. And once you have this down, it leads us to the next piece, is peacemaking. Choose to be peacemakers in your relationship. I know a lot of times we leave conflict sometimes unresolved. And what happens when that conflict doesn't go dealt with and kind of begins to fester up inside of us, and it creates separation in our relationships. And so in conflict, we feel hurt, We feel rejected. We feel like our opinion didn't matter. And so it's important to go back to those and somehow choose to make peace instead of putting our foot in our mouth and making the other person mad all the time. And last series that we did on relationships, our lead pastor led us to a great exercise to do, was the idea of a timeout. And a timeout is in those moments where things are heated, you're about to say something that you really don't mean, that you just say, hey, listen, I don't want to hurt you anymore. I just need to take a timeout. And let's come back to this in a minute when we're both a little more level-headed and we can talk this through. It may be 3 minutes, it may be 3 hours, who knows? But taking a timeout helps us process what we're feeling a little bit better instead of shouting a bunch of things that we really don't mean. Take time to chill out and hear each other out. And when you do that, it helps ease the peace in the relationship when a conflict does arise. So what are some things you can do during this time? Let each other vent without being reactive or defensive. Just hear each other out and the problems that you have. Admit when you're wrong and apologize. Sometimes the thing that would save our marriages the most is if we simply use this phrase, I am sorry. I'm sorry. But our pride gets in the way sometimes and we think that we got it all together and they don't need our forgiveness, but they do. And sometimes we need to own what we did wrong, even if we didn't feel like it was that big of a deal. It was that big of a deal to somebody else. And so asking for forgiveness and apologizing is a big deal. And don't let frustrations go unconfessed. Guys, this is a big one for us because we bottle everything up and then sometimes it just explodes. But instead of doing that, a lot of times, why don't we just share what we're actually feeling in the moment so that it doesn't have to come to that? Choose to share what you're feeling. Don't let issues go unresolved. And as we do that, as we make peace with our spouse and understand them, it leads to this thing called loyalty that we all desire in a relationship, that we're loyal to one another. And being loyal to someone means you are committed to that person and they feel that commitment inside of them. It means you get involved in things that they love and care about, and they get involved in things that you care about. For me, one of the greatest things that I got to learn about this year that I had no idea they even existed was essential oils. Did you guys know that those were a thing? Oh man, my wife is into these things. I mean, she's got flavors and colors and all kinds of stuff and little puffers that shoot magical stuff in our house and makes it smell good. And I mean, these things are wild. I'd never seen such a thing. But I've chose to get involved in it. Tell me about it, babe. Tell me about what makes the house smell good and not smell like the child has pooped on the floor, and tell me about this and tell me, and man, she tells me about all these great things about him, and I get to know what she's into. And then me, I love, trucks, and I love going off-roading, and I love going on these trail rides, and so she gets involved and knows everything about Jeeps and Land Rovers that you could ever imagine. And the other day, she was like, Trey, looks like your tires are getting a little low. And I'm like, yeah, they are, girl. And I was like, do you think I need some new ones? And she's like, yeah, I think it's about time. I was like, I love you. I got to put new tires on my truck. I didn't even have to ask. It was great. But it's because we got to know one another. We get to know what each other likes and what we dislike. We get to know what each other are into. And it helps us communicate with one another and shows us that we care and we're loyal to each other. That kind of dedication to one another is an awesome thing to have in your relationships. So spend some time getting to know what your spouse is into. Choose to be loyal to them instead of loyal to other things, because this is the stuff that's going to make the difference. How do you do this? Speak highly in front of them, or about them in front of other people. Get involved in things that are important to each other. Keep your commitments. You say you're going to do something, do it. And do it in the timeline in which you said you were going to do it. Speak positive about your spouse in front of your kids, because you never know what they're hearing, and they need to be hearing the best from you. Which leads us to our last part. Once we get loyalty down in our relationships, the last thing we need to do is esteem one another. Esteem one another. And that means help the other person feel good about themselves. Help them know just how much you notice them. It means showing them how proud you are of them and that you took time out of your busy life to notice the details. Guys, this one's huge. Notice the details. When your wife is going to go get her hair done, All you have to do is notice when she gets back home and say, it looks good, right? Because here's what's going to happen. She's going to come home and she's going to be doing this, and you're like, how's your day? And she's like, good. Do you notice anything? Yeah, it smells good in here. You ready for dinner? How about anything else? Do you notice anything? No. Do you got something in your head? But the idea that you notice the details, you notice that she got her hair done and it looks a different color and it's curled a different way, and that you cared to notice it and you saw it. That's what women want. They want to feel loved in that way. And guys, we also want to feel like our time and attention mattered. When we took out the trash, or we did that chore, or we did that thing, and we proved to our family that they matter. A simple noticing the details can go a long way. How do we do this? Use the phrase often, thank you. Thank you. Thank you can go a long way to esteeming somebody because they noticed that you did something for them and that you were willing to say something about it. We need to be better at saying thank you for the things that our spouse does. Open the door for your wife. Men, this is a huge one. You probably did it when you were dating, but you forgot about it. Even with kids, even with the busyness, you can still be a gentleman and go open the door for your wife. Notice the details. Value opinions of the other person and make the other person feel important. These small things go a long way in a relationship and helping the other person feel good about who they are and about their relationship with you. Because ultimately, they've entrusted their life to you. They've entrusted their relationship to you. And it's important that we love and respect each other the way in which God calls us to. And what's really cool, this week, I got to spend time with my parents, who I've gotten to look up to my whole life. They've been married for over 30 years, and I've got a chance just to watch their marriage and relationship and our family, and it's amazing to see what they've done and how they stuck together through the good times and the hard times. And I've always just loved their relationship, and I model a lot of my wife and I's relationship off of what I've learned growing up with them my whole life. And so I got to spend some time asking them some questions about how they love and respect each other and how they made it through some of the difficult things in their relationship. And so I want to share that with you this morning, and I hope that you get something out of their story as I got to ask them a few questions about their relationship. So take a look at this.
All right, I'm Angie.
And I'm Travis. I'm here because they paid me. I don't know what this is all about. We've been married 34 years this year. 34 happy, wonderful years, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we were high school sweethearts at 19. We started dating, well, actually probably 15. Got married at 19,
Yeah.
by 19. So probably in our 20s, we had you and Josh. And so that was kind of interesting and challenging kind of growing up. But we both come from dysfunctional families and divorce. And we found that, you know, we wanted to raise you guys in a home that was different and to be different than what our past families and our lifestyles were.
We went into this with the idea that we were going to make it no matter what happened. And we've had some mountaintop experiences, but by golly, we've been through some pretty deep valleys in these 34 years together. About year 6.5 or 7 in our marriage, you know, we got married and we took off. We were all in love and all excited and everything was going really well. And then after a little while, some of that first jitters, the newness wears off, and then all of that stuff that you've had bottled up and kept down begins to come out, and that person you married then begins to see the real person that you are. And that's where we really hit a bump in the road because of some of the stuff I had been through, some of the stuff she had been through began to come out, and we didn't really love or respect each other at all. So I was struggling to make her respect me, and she was struggling to gain my love from her. And the more we were pushing to make it happen, the less it was happening because we didn't communicate, we didn't listen, and we brought in so much baggage from the past that was beginning to come out. and we weren't communicating well at all. We hit that season in the midst of that, and we were like, we struggled. We had to get counseling. We had to get help. And we were at a point we looked at each other and said, we said we would never give up on this, but really, is there anything left to fight for? And that was a hard day. Didn't know this was gonna happen. Yeah, that was a tough day to realize that maybe we just said maybe it isn't going to work. It ain't going to work, and we just said, you know what? That next day, we both went and sought out the Lord. She ended up at one place, I ended up at another, and we didn't know. And I was just praying. I was like, God, I know you didn't intend me to do this, and I don't know what's going on here, what's got in the midst of our marriage, but we're not loving, and we're not respecting, and we're fighting back and forth. And I can remember saying, God, if this is something you want me to just walk away from, then it's okay. But if not, then you got to give me a sign. I need something because I don't know what to do. And at the same time,
I was praying, and I'm like, Lord, we promised each other, and we promised to the Lord, we were going to make this through sickness and in health and the ups and downs of life. And so we just kind of hit rock bottom, but we were like, we got to come together. We're raising 2 kids. We know what, separation and, family breakups, how it affects. And we're like, no, we've got to fight for this. So I remember us coming back together and saying, we're going to make this, but we have to have God to be the center. We can't do this individually on our own. We've got to pray together. We've got to, have Him to be the center, Him to guide us. And that was the breaking point. That was the beginning of Him mending us back together to make this the best thing ever.
That day we began to seek the Lord, not I seek and she seek, but we seek. And when we begin to seek the Lord and we begin to put the Lord in the middle of our marriage, everything began to change. The love and respect thing then started to become more natural and easy. Then it was something I was fighting for. It was something I wanted to give her. And I noticed the more that I would give in and love on her, the more that she would turn around and respect me back. That was the beginning of something we started then, and we've continued to do every day as we pray together. Every morning before we get out of bed, when we wake up, we stop and pray to the Lord to lead and guide us in each and every step we make throughout the day and be the center of our marriage. We've been doing that now for, we've been married 34 years, so take 6 off of that, 7 off of that. So we've been doing that a long time. And that was the beginning of the whole turn of our marriage, was allowing God to be in the center of it.
So going off of the love and respect thing, that's what we've been talking about over the last 2 weeks. The idea that, men and women need 2 different things in order to function better in a marriage. So how have you all done that in your marriage? What are some things that make you feel loved that he does? And what are some things that make you feel respected that she does?
I just think he listens to me now, because sometimes in the past, I didn't let him know what I was really feeling and getting my feelings out. But now you really truly listen and just have that quality time. And not that you put me first, you put the Lord, but you're just with me and you want to do fun things together. And that's what's really cool. But listening.
I think that for me, one of the things that meant the most, that it made me feel more respected, was she would begin to do little things for me that she wouldn't do. Example, this week I was in my office working. I'd been in there all day. She knew I was overwhelmed, hadn't had time to eat. And she walks in out of nowhere and sets a cup of coffee and a bagel and cream cheese on my desk. And that seems like a small thing to do, but that to me was her saying, I love you, I respect you, and I'm caring about you. Hope you're doing okay today. So that meant a lot to me. And the little things like that always meant a lot. And even more now, she pays more attention to the details than me in my life. And we share more things together than we used to. So.
And I guess too, I noticed that I was too busy or worrying about this, that, or the other that I didn't stop to really say, what is your needs? What is it? How can I serve you? You know?
I think one of the things that we've learned over the years that's really helped us more than anything has been communication. Just to sit down and talk about the things that we're feeling, whether we're very excited and happy or whether one of us has done something to upset the other one. We just try to sit down anymore, and I like to say, hey, when you did this, it made me feel this way, and I like to talk about it for a minute. So I've learned not to flee and have to go sit and process for 2 days. And we seem to sit now and have those maybe sometimes harder conversations, it seems, in the moment, but that way we can stop anything from growing into something that it shouldn't be.
Communication, yes, is the biggest thing.
So there's other couples out in our audience today who maybe they came to church today and they're on their last leg of their marriage. They don't know how they're going to make it. Or there's other couples that have been married for 30 some years and things are going well. How would you encourage couples today? If you could give them one piece of encouragement, what would you tell them to continue to love and respect each other in their marriages?
Run! No, just kidding. Don't run. I think the biggest thing that I would have to say is don't give up. Don't quit. Don't surrender, because we almost did. We were like within days of giving up on the best thing God had ever given us. So I would say don't give up, and really more than anything, seek God. Put God in the center of everything in your marriage.
And raising your kids.
Yes. Pray together. Find you a church that you're already at, but dig in. Dig in as a family and get the healing that you need. One of the things that we didn't do, we brought all of our baggage into our marriage. So I really encourage talking with each other, talking with someone, and going through your past and cleaning out all of those closets that you have inside of you with all that deep, dark stuff, and get that stuff out and put the Lord in it. And that seemed to be what bonded us back together. And
I think too, just communication, and even as a family, because that's a lot of things no one's talking or communicating anymore. The families need to get together and say, what's your struggles? How can we help you? Marriages and as family dynamics as well. And then also have date nights. And then, you're raising kids and life gets busy. But, before you had kids and things, you were a couple, so marriage comes, God first, but then your marriage, and then have those date nights and nurture it. But if you focus so much on just, raising the kids and being so busy, then you lose touch of each other. And it's a sad thing when we see couples now that have lost that love. When they finally get time to enjoy each other, it's usually ended. So
we picked up where we left off from when you all were born, it's a great thing. We enjoyed the season of raising you all, but now we get the season of being husband and wife again. And honestly, we're having a blast. I mean, we are. We do date nights every week. We have meals out. We cook together. We take little trips together. We have balcony moments together. And so it was worth every bit of the fight and everything to make it through to get to this season. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys for being willing to, one, do this, but also for me, the example that you guys have set for me, you all fighting for your marriage, not giving up when it got hard, not quitting like I saw a lot of other families do, and you guys continue to run the course and continue to love each other, respect each other, just did so much for me and my family now that you guys probably will never even know. For me, I get to love my wife and treat her the way I do because of the example I saw you, Dad, treat Mom with. And Mom, the love that you gave me as I get to love my wife with and understand what she needs. And with us raising a family now, it is difficult. It does get hard to find those times for one another. But I thank you guys for the example you've given me and got to share with everybody today, because I know it helped me in my life, and hopefully today it helped somebody else as well. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us share.
Yeah.
Give it up for my crazy family. And I hope today you see the difference that these things can make in our lives and our marriages. And sometimes we think, where do we start? There's so much we have to work on. Here's what I want you to do, your homework this week with your spouse or significant other, is just pick one of these things to work on. One of these couple things that we talked about. Which one do you think your relationship needs the most? And circle that, and get your spouse or significant other to circle another one. And I want you to work on that. And once you get that down and feel like that's good, try another one. And you get that down, try another one, and build on each other. Don't feel like you have to do everything at once. But it starts with loving and respecting each other and choosing to focus on the things that need our attention. Which leads us to the last thing that we'll talk about together today. Number 3 is patiently practice. Number 3, patiently practice. This stuff isn't easy, or else everybody would be doing it. It takes time, work, dedication, and it takes practice on your behalf and being patient with one another through the process. So be patient with one another as you try these things. And if things go well, tell the person, hey, that went well. If that didn't go well, say, hey, that was weird. Don't do that again. You're freaking me out. And go through those different things together, because as you do, as you practice, your relationships will get better. And like my parents said, the biggest piece of advice, put God at the center of your relationship. Maybe you're seeking him or your spouse seeking him, but seek him together, pray together, spend time with God, and allow God to give you the strength and the patience and the endurance to make your relationship last. Because at the end of the day, he's the glue that's going to hold it all together. And so today, as we close out our time together, I want to do something a little different. I want an opportunity to pray for the couples of our church, this campus and our other campuses. And so if you are a couple in here today, and even if your spouse or significant other isn't with you, you can stand as well. But I just want you all to stand, and I just want an opportunity to pray for the couples in here today that are represented. Awesome. And I just want you to, if you're with your spouse, hold their hand. Don't get too awkward now that we're in church, but just hold their hand. And I just want us to pray that God would be with us as we leave here today, that he would give you everything that you need to love and respect each other as we leave here today. So let's pray together. Jesus, I thank you for each and every couple that's represented in here today. God, I thank you for their life, their story, their legacy that they're leaving behind. And God, I pray today that you would give them the power, the strength, the endurance, the patience with one another that they need, God, to tell the story that you created them to tell. God, I pray their love for one another would grow. Their respect for one another would increase. And God, that you would be the center of their relationship once again. God, whatever junk or stuff is in the way, God, I pray that they would get rid of that this week. Have the hard conversations, so that they once again can be united to each other and united with you as they continue to pursue one another. God, as we leave here today, I ask that our relationship with you would grow. And God, as that increases, that our relationship with one another would just become more abundant as well. We love you, we praise you, and we thank you for the gift of relationship. And God, I pray that you help us steward it well. And in your name we pray, amen. And everybody said, amen. Can we got a hand for our time together today? Awesome. Well, thank you for being with us here today. Hope you have a great Sunday, and join us next week as we kick off a new series with one another. But don't get too wet out there, and we'll see you back here next week. Have a great Sunday.
We hope this message will help you continue to explore, experience, and express God's grace and truth for your life. If Atlee Church is making a difference in your life, we'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions from this message, we'd love to talk to you. Email us at stories@atleechurch.org. Check out our website for more about our community, our ministries, and how you can financially support Atlee Church to help us continue to share messages like this one. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. We have links on our website, or you can search for us on iTunes to get this podcast every week. Thanks again, and hope to see you next Sunday.